Hello and welcome to the 10-Minute Manager. This is a quick demonstration to show you how this quick and easy program can empower your managers and business. This is our opening screen here. If we click forward to proceed, we move on to a word of caution regarding all accounting software, and then a quick outline on how to set your macros to use the program as efficiently as possible. If we move on to the next step, we have our license and non-disclosure agreement. We enter in our company name here to accept those details, and we click next to move on. In step 1, this is where we set up our company name, our site name and ABN. We click next to move on. We enter in our employee names, so let's say John, Jill, Jerry, Jay, and their normal rate of pay. Let's say that they get paid $20 an hour. You'll notice that the Saturday, Sunday and public holiday rate automatically calculates itself, and the category of employment needs to be completed here: FT for full-time, PT for part-time and C for casual. Obviously this is quite important in calculating your employees' wage entitlements. If we move on to step 3, we have superannuation. We enter in our percentage there. Sick annual leave and loading, we enter in our percentage there, and total work cover levy, we enter in just there. We then click next to move on to our fixed weekly overheads. At this stage, it's important for you to amortize your rent, electricity and gas payment and average over the year to get work down to a weekly cost, and which is your net and GST amount. This will give you an average cost on a weekly basis, so you know your daily position while you are trading. Across here we've got franchise fees. If you pay a percentage of your turnover, please enter the percentage amount there. Otherwise, if you pay a fixed franchise fee, enter your net amount there and your GST amount just next to it. If we click next to move on, we type in our suppliers. It's a good idea to keep these in alphabetical order so you can easily locate them. If we click next to move on, we enter in our revenue centres, and in this instance we have a cafe as one revenue centre, the catering at that cafe as another, and room service as another. You may also have a function centre or something similar that you'd like to enter in there. If we move on, we enter in the amount of days we trade. In this instance we're trading 7 days per week. And the last step is setting our key performance indicators for our wages, overheads, materials and profits. Okay, it's very, very important that you set these KPIs here, because that's what you will be holding your managers accountable against. So let's move on from there. This brings us to our index page. A good place to start before we set up our roster is our input center, where we will calculate projected turnover for the week. So on Monday, let's assume that we'll be turning over $2,000 for the day. Now that is a net amount, so we're only entering the net amounts in at this stage. So let's say we'll be doing 2,000 Monday through to Sunday each day. Okay. What you'll notice in this page, we have our revenue centres here, so you can also project how much catering you'll be doing and how much room service. This is the net amount, this is the GST amount. For projection purposes, I'm only entering in the net amount. We enter in our covers just under here, so the amount of customers we had in the cafe, amount of catering orders and room service orders there, and that will aid in report generating. You'll notice along this side we have our suppliers. On a daily basis, as we receive our invoices, it's a good idea to enter in your invoices. So let's say All Fresh delivered us $200 worth of fresh produce. There was no GST on that. Berry Juice delivered us $300 with $20 worth of GST. So obviously that's the net amount and that's the GST amount. And we would do that for all of our suppliers. And what you'll actually notice here, we have a materials as a percentage of turnover KPI that's shown just here. Okay, that calculates against that $2,000 there. Okay, so at the end of the day, when you do have actual turnover figures, it's a good idea to put the net amount and GST amount, your actual figures there, to actually see how your materials as a percentage of turnover performed. Now obviously, ideally in my cafes, I prefer that material as a percentage of turnover to be somewhere around the 30% mark. Okay. Now, obviously we do that Monday through to Sunday. But let's say today is Monday, or let's say we're actually doing the roster for this coming week. We click return to go back, click roster, and what you'll see here is that I do have a roster of sorts. It's a little messy, so I'll quickly clean that up a little bit. Now, when doing the roster, it's important to note that you have a percentage amount here. That's your percentage of wages as against your projected turnover. So in this instance, if we wanted our staffing levels to be closer to 35%, we would need to reduce these hours somewhat. Okay, and this is a great tool for managers, because you can tell your manager that you do not want wages to exceed, let's say, 35% of your projected turnover, or your actual turnover for that matter. So your manager will really be under the pump to make sure that they reduce this roster to what it actually should be. So in this instance, let's reduce Jerry's hours, and Jerry can work through till 3 o'clock. That still didn't make much of a difference, didn't get it down to 35%, so we'll make that 2 o'clock now. Okay, and you can see we're at 34.92%. I'm quite happy with that, and we might want to do that for the rest of the week to get that down to 35% if we're expecting we'll be turning over $2,000 a day. So let's change that. There we go. There we go. Okay. And obviously Saturday and Sundays come in at 11% and 14%. That might indicate that we're understaffed. You really do need to know your business to know whether or not rostering John alone on Saturday and Sundays is sufficient enough service for your customers. In this instance, I would probably suggest that we roster someone else on to ensure that the customers are being looked after. And at 31% on Saturday, that's not too bad. Sunday, we're obviously paying double time and a half. I may need to reduce those wages somewhat, so we'll make that 1 o'clock, and I can bear 39% on a Sunday. Okay, so once we've set the roster, we obviously print that off and post that for our staff. But when the day's over, it's very important that that roster does reflect actual hours, so you may need to adjust hours there to reflect actual hours, and we would also want to put our actual turnover in there. So let's say Monday we performed better than expected and we did 2,500. You can see our materials are now 20%. It is important that by the end of the day that you do have all of your invoices listed in your 10-minute manager. And then what we can do is we can then go down to reports and have a look at some of our reports. Now we've got a wages report, which tells us how much we paid everyone, what our percentage of wages was over the course of the day, or what it was on average over the week. It will tell us how much we paid in super, work cover, and how much we've allocated for sick and annual leave. The other report that we have available to us is our key performance indicators, which will tell us Monday through to Sunday. In red, the key performance indicators which weren't met, and in black the ones that were met. Okay, if we go back, we've also got a covers report, which shows us the covers for each day. It'll also tell us the average spend for each of our revenue centres, cafe, catering, arts and the like. Okay, if we return there, we now go to probably my favourite of all reports, our productivity report, which for all intensive purposes is a daily profit and loss. We start with our revenue here, our wage expenses, GST expenses, our fixed expenses, our material expenses, and our position for the end of the day. Now you can see our position on Monday was a profit of $941. Obviously a profit's what we want to see, but we also set a key performance indicator for our profit levels, and we've met that. Our target is 20%. We achieved 37% on Monday. You can also see these percentages for materials at 20%. Fixed overheads at 14%, wage percentages at 27%, and you can see here it's highlighted in red because that percentage, that particular KPI wasn't met. Now to get back, we click return, and from our report center, if we click return again, we get to our index page. That concludes our quick demonstration of the 10-minute manager. I feel quite confident that every business can can do well with a program like this. It really does take 10 minutes per day to have a decent idea of where your business position lies on a daily basis, which is very, very important. Thank you for your time.